All right. Hey, everyone. It is 8 o'clock and we are now live. So let's get rolling here. So, hey, it's Chuck Gross here. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I hope you're having a great week. I have a few things that I want to cover tonight, so let's get to it. So I have one question submitted. I do have the Q&A portion of the Hangout turned on the right-hand side. So if you have a question for while the Hangout's occurring, please ask it through that, and I'll check at the very end and answer any questions that have been asked. Other than that, the Hangout from 2 weeks ago didn't have any audio. Sorry about that. That's when I was really sick, and I must have been not paying as much attention as I could have been. So I apologize. So I'm going to kind of go over some of the topics that I mentioned during that particular Hangout, but I'm going to answer one particular question that was asked for tonight's Hangout as well. So I'll start with that one. This first question comes from Danny, and Danny asks, how important is the amount of time a person rests between sets? She mentions that she was having a conversation with a young guy at her gym, and that person was saying that the three main rest periods are 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and 90 seconds, and they all have their specific reason for use. And that Danny goes on to say that she wasn't sure which rest period was right for her, if that even matters at all. So that's a great question, Danny. Thank you for asking it. So the amount of rest time between sets is going to depend on exactly what you're trying to accomplish. So while that person at your gym was right in that there are specific reasons to use different rest intervals between your sets and between your exercises, it's a little odd that he only mentioned three. He kind of skipped over some of the most important ones. So I'll get into that. Before I get into those specifics, though, I do want to note that if you currently aren't lifting weights consistently each week, meaning if you don't have a consistent schedule where you have like a minimum 2 days a week that you hit every single week no matter what, this information is really not something you're going to need to worry about. You'd essentially be worrying about the details before you actually have the consistent habit in place. So the most important thing in that case would be to first get consistent with your workouts, and then once you've achieved that, you can start worry about what's best to do during your workouts and kind of micromanaging your time between workouts and things like that. That's if you're basically a beginner because you haven't been consistent, that's the first thing to worry about first, and then the details can be worried about later. So I'll say it again, I'm a huge fan of training for strength. If you're not currently training for strength and trying to get stronger every single workout, but you're willing to try, but you're not currently, please talk to me right away. I'd love to help you do that. It's a great way to help lose weight. It's a great way to see progress every week because, as we know, the scale is not very reliable when it comes to showing progress in weight loss, but it lets you see progress generally every single week. If you look at my training log, you'll see that in general, I'm either going up in weight or I'm adding a rep here and there. Yes, those are minor things, but it lets me see that I'm doing better every single time that I train. And it's really not about being perfect or making up some grand plan and trying to stick to it. It's really just about doing better than you've done before. So, like I said, if you're not currently strength training and you're willing to give it a shot, please let me know. I would love to help you. So let me know. All right. Okay, so to go into the specifics now, I'm going to break this down into the types of training and goals into 3 groups. And then I'm going to talk about the reasons for using a specific rest period for each of those types of training or goals. So the first type of training or goal would be for strength, pure strength. The way your body works is that the energy for strength training is an energy system in your body that's called, you might see it called elsewhere, ATP. It's a very complicated system. I'm not going to go into the specifics whatsoever because it doesn't really matter for anyone that's just wants to know what rest period to use. It's kind of out of context. But the way it works is that if you're strength training, and that means using heavier weights, high intensity, lower reps, then your body is using the ATP system to fuel that workout, to fuel those reps. Let's say you do a really heavy set of 5. It's going to take your ATP system between 2.5 and 3 minutes, maybe even up to 5 minutes, to fully be restored or refueled enough to do the same thing over again. So, like I said, that's 2.5 up to 5 minutes for your ATP stores to fully recover after one single set of intense exercise. So this type of training, again, would be explosive, low repetition activities that are of short duration. So that means weightlifting, power lifters, Olympic lifting, sprinters, most football player positions, sprint cyclists, sprinting, that type of thing. Anything that's incredibly intense, short bursts of power that don't, it's not a long duration. So that basically covers that type of training. And that's, again, 2.5 minutes to 5 minutes usually. So again, if you're training for strength, I'd recommend you do that for compound movements. Then your rest time is going to be somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes between sets. This type of training and in rest intervals are more appropriate for compound exercises like bench press, squats, deadlifts, and their endless variations. Because in general, with those, you're using more of your entire body. It's going to recruit more energy, and you need more rest in order to effectively move that weight with high intensity. So the next type would be training for muscle growth and or muscular endurance. Muscle growth could also be considered size, muscle size. So this covers like bodybuilders, long sprint runners, swimmers, cyclists, wrestlers, soccer players, and similar sports. The rest period used here would be between 30 and 60 seconds. You can simplify that to be basically the amount of time you spend resting should be pretty much equal to the amount of time you're spending on that particular set. So if a set takes you 30 seconds to complete, a 30-second rest time is appropriate. If the set takes you a minute to complete, a minute rest period is appropriate. Now, when I say things like covering bodybuilders, swimmers, cyclists, wrestlers, soccer players, I don't mean that that's your goal physique, but I mean if you're actively an athlete in those specific sports. Kind of training for the body that matches a particular sport is a little bit off topic. We can talk about that another time if you want. But in general, I'm talking about the specific training you're doing, not the specific aesthetic look you're looking for. That is a little bit different. So the reason that you would use this shorter rest period when you're training for muscle growth and size and or endurance exercises is that when you are using a higher training volume, and that means your rep ranges are going to be 8 to 12, 8 to 12 rep range max, is that you're going to build up lactic acid in your muscles. And that's normal. That's nothing to be concerned about. It's basically when you are working out and after so many reps, the muscles start to feel like they're burning, like not a good burning. So what happens is that rest period over a long enough period of time will let you build up a resistance so that you can push that higher volume for longer or for longer periods of time. Or as you adapt to the volume, you can go up in weight and push that newer, higher weight for the same amount of volume. So that, it's basically extending the amount of time and energy you can put to moving that weight before that lactic acid buildup forces you to stop. And you're just continuously pushing that boundary of those rest times. So that covers the muscle growth and endurance type of goal or training. So the last type of training would be specifically for muscle growth of smaller muscles that recover quickly. So the rest times are going to depend on what type of set and rep scheme you're using. There are two different types that I use in my own training, but there's more out there. So if you see a specific one and are curious how to use it in your own training, please ask me. So I'll use my examples to explain it. So the muscles that are smaller and recover quickly are going to be shoulders and, let's say, calves. I use 30 to 60 second rest periods while doing 30 to 60 second rest periods while I then reduce the number of reps downwards. So that's just a regular, it's called pyramiding. So let's just say I'm doing lat raises which are a side shoulder raise with dumbbells. So let's just say that I'll pick a weight, 20 pounds, and I'll do 12 reps. And then I will rest 30 seconds, do 10 reps, rest 30 seconds, do 8 reps, rest 30 seconds, do 6 reps, and then I'm done. Let's just say that it took me a little bit longer of rest between the second to last and last set. That means I wouldn't go up and wait until I have my rest periods all the way down to 30 seconds. So that's to say that I then do go up in weight, but I'm not hitting that 30-second rest period. I'll stay at that weight until I can actually get the rest periods down to 30 seconds. And again, you're just fighting that lactic acid buildup to get your volume in. But these are muscles that are very small and they recover very quickly. Shoulders are not one muscle; it's technically three muscles, but three heads of the muscle. So that's one example of what I do in my own training. The other one would be another rep scheme would be rest pause. So the idea is you'd pick a weight that you can do for say 20 reps. So I would be doing calf raises. I'd do 20 reps of that weight, and then I'd only rest for 10 seconds. And then I would do 8 reps, rest 10 seconds, 8 reps, rest 10 seconds, 8 reps. And then that's pretty much it. So that kind of gives you, doing this type of training gives you a little bit alternate way to progress. And I like to mix these in with my trainings. Let's just say I'm focusing on one compound exercise, like a squat or a deadlift or a bench press, where you're constantly trying to push for heavier numbers and get stronger. That takes a toll on your body. That's a stressor. By kind of isolating the smaller muscles, it takes a little bit of that recovery time. It doesn't take as much recovery time as if you were going hard and heavy on every single compound exercise and then every single body part with heavy weights. And that's just harder to recover from, especially if you're stressed out from work and you're also trying to lose weight. Those are additional stressors you kind of have to factor in with your training. So you kind of want to focus on the main thing and then worry about the secondary things after. So in my own training, in summary, what's best for rest intervals does really depend on your goals. For most people, me included, after you've been lifting consistently for a while and you have made progress already, your rest periods are going to likely be some combination of what I mentioned earlier. So, and it's going to be dependent on the exercise selection you have too, and the specific why that exercise is included in your program. So in my own training, I focus on getting as strong as possible in a few key movements with low reps and high intensity. And those movements are literally going to involve multiple muscle groups, so they're compound. And then I use some specific high rep, lower rest periods, either using rest pause or just shorter rest periods for muscle groups that I want to target for growth. For me, that's likely going to be something like shoulders, mostly shoulders. But like I said, all of this is really a bit too specific to worry about in general for weight loss. It's really only something you need to worry about if you've been lifting consistency, you're already plenty strong, and you really want to kind of hyper focus on things. So if that's the case, let me know. So this is I kind of want to get into the topics that I was talking about 2 weeks ago that didn't happen to record with audio. And again, I apologize for that. I'm not really sure what happened. My only excuse is that I was incredibly sick. But I'm better now, and I'm really hoping the audio is recording right now, but everything looks like it is. So this is something that I wanted to talk about. It's a little bit personal for me, so I kind of want to go into this. I was recently reading something from one of my favorite nutrition authors, and that's Lau McDonald. Lau is the person that I credit with starting my education in the area of nutrition due to how he really breaks down these complex topics into understandable chunks. The other person would be Alan Aragon, who I've had the luck to meet in person. I'm really happy that I did. He was kind of the opposite side of the coin. Lau really dives into the specifics. Alan actually is able to take these complex topics, break them down, and then basically say, but in the end, what really matters is this. So they're kind of opposite sides of the coin here. But the nerd in me really likes the Lau breakdown of like the real specific details, but broken down into simple terms. So Lau was recently answering a question that he was asked on his website about the connection between dietary food choices and things like anxiety, panic attacks, manic episodes, depression, fatigue, and increased agitation. So Lau has written in depth on this topic, and I can send you a link if you want to really get into the weeds here about the specifics here. But I'm bringing it up because it's something that I started to kind of write about as far as how dietary food choices can help you with cravings and what is the actual mechanism going on there. So the idea is that there are serotonin levels. Serotonin is said to be the happiness hormone in our brain, and that specific food choices can help raise serotonin when there are many reasons why serotonin would be low. The context of the article that I wrote was mostly about during women's time of the month where serotonin seems to drop and they have cravings, and the cravings are a result of that drop. So there are some food choices that can help you raise that and combat those cravings without basically having, let's say, a week out of every month that you are, having to undo what you've done the remaining weeks, which is not a healthy relationship with food in that case. So to combat those cravings, the idea is you raise serotonin by making very specific food choices. So things like starchy or sweet carbs that are low fat and in general lower protein, because in general proteins can kind of lower the serotonin response, but so can fats and artificial sweeteners. So the idea is, what I basically found interesting about Lyle's answer is that he explains that serotonin works to actively inhibit our brain from processing things like anxiety, depression, panic, mania, fatigue, aggression, but that, excuse me. Sorry. Oh, so that when our serotonin levels drop, those things that are kind of waiting below the surface can kind of creep back in. So it's almost like the serotonin hormone is a suppressant or a wall for these things. So when serotonin drops, they kind of come creeping back up to the surface. I likely wouldn't find this as fascinating as if I wasn't prone to some anxiety myself. The specific recommendation here is that if you experience anxiety, depression, etc., you don't want to go low carb basically ever. And that you do want to include some protein choices, but they would need to be protein choices that are high in the amino acid tryptophan. So if the word tryptophan rings a bell, it's because you probably hear that word every time U.S. Thanksgiving rolls around in November, where you hear news reporters talking about that turkey makes you sleepy because of tryptophan. Well, it doesn't, but it's just one amino acid that's a protein that, in this particular case, that can help with serotonin, where, when we say protein, it could be any number of amino acids that are considered proteins. So the idea here is don't go low carb and look for protein sources that are high in tryptophan. And I don't mean like protein sources like just chicken breast. I mean foods that have the amino acid tryptophan in them. They're not your traditional weight loss diet protein sources. Just basically foods that are high in this particular amino acid. And what I mean by that will be clear, I hope, by the specific examples. So chocolate is number one. And I mean like actual chocolate, not milk chocolate. So something like an organic dark chocolate bar. The one brand that I like is Green and Black. That's the company name. They carry it at Walmart. It's dark organic chocolate, and it's delicious. It's really not expensive. You can basically get a bar for like $2, $2.50, and it should last you a while. Number two is oats, so like oatmeal, steel cut oats, something like that. Dried dates. I've never actually tried a date myself, but from what I understand, dried dates are used as a sweetener alternative. Milk is a good one. Yogurt, cottage cheese, red meat, eggs, fish, poultry, sesame, chickpeas, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, spirulina, bananas, and peanuts. Just going through this list, it sounds like a really good salad to me. All these ingredients mixed together. Maybe not the milk on the salad, but other than that, everything kind of sounds like some good salad ingredients. But the one thing I do want to mention that this is not a good reason to go out and say, I'm going to look for ways to increase my serotonin all over the place. There are supplements that increase serotonin, and it's like L-tryptophan and 5-HTP, and you can find those in any grocery store. But please, please, please do not just go out and buy them and try to up your serotonin levels just because you hear me talking about this or you read an article. Supplements are to address a deficiency. And I know there's a problem with the fitness industry in general that's pushing supplements because people make money by getting people to buy supplements. Please, 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 you can't just go buy off the shelf serotonin supplements without consequences. You have to talk to your doctor if you're supplementing basically anything. Supplements can interfere with medication, and you need your doctor to be involved and have their permission to do that, really. You can't just mess around with your brain chemistry because there are hazards to doing so. Taking a serotonin-related supplement when you're taking any neurological drug without involving your doctor could be potentially lethal. So please, please, please don't just go buy supplements and start taking them without figuring out if they have any interactions with things you may already be taking or any conditions you may have. And again, I'll repeat that the supplement industry is all about making you buy supplements, whether you need them or not. And that's a conversation. I'm not going to tell you to buy any supplements ever, basically. Maybe a fiber supplement. And there is no residual money for recommending fiber supplements like there would be for protein supplements or pre-workouts and post-workouts and blah, blah, blah. So there's no big fiber money from recommending fiber. That basically covers that, but it's something to be aware of, that your food choices can actually alter your brain chemistry positively, especially if you have cravings that seem to happen at certain times, especially if those cravings are kind of paired with being stressed or not getting enough sleep, that type of thing. Excuse me. Alrighty. And the last thing that I wanted to discuss this evening, before looking for any submitted questions, is starvation mode. I recently saw a good discussion about this on Photocracy, and I thought it was an incredible post that kind of explained the concept extremely well in simple terms. So I'd like to share it and summarize it. So you might have heard the term starvation mode used in relation to weight loss. The clinical definition of starvation is a severe calorie deficit that's pretty much devoid of protein. So when we are in a reasonable calorie deficit, the body uses our stored fat on our body as energy. So the theoretical maximum amount of energy that you can use is said to be 31 calories per pound of body fat that you have, and that's total pounds of body fat. Unfortunately, there's not as much research about this system and how that works as there are with other bodily systems related to metabolism. But that's even if we just make an assumption that this is achievable with 50% efficiency. That means that if you're 200 pounds and you're 40% body fat, you have 80 pounds of fat on you. So that means you could theoretically get 1,200 calories of energy from your stored fat, which means your maximum calorie deficit per day is 1,200. So that means your maintenance is, let's just guesstimate at 1,600. You can pull 1,200 from your fat stores. That means you only need to get 400 calories from food, and you have to get enough protein and sufficient nutrients and enough fiber to process all that. Then you wouldn't be starving under the medical definition of what starvation mode is. The thing is, though, that you'd probably never want to do that unless you have an incredibly pressing medical reason to do that, where you have to lose weight or you're going to die soon. Or you need surgery to fix some other problem that's life-threatening and you have to be under a certain weight for the surgery. Yes, you won't starve to death as long as you have enough body fat to give you energy and you're getting enough nutrients and protein in your system. However, you will suffer, you will be miserable, and I would never, ever, 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 ever recommend you take your calories that low. Unless we have enough data collected over enough time, including what you're eating, you're accurately logging your calories, and the scale weight measurements aren't really changing. That would be enough data to possibly suggest otherwise, but I'd recommend that you not really ever drop below what your target body weight times 8 is. Sometimes women may have to go as low as their current body weight times like 6, but again, these are extreme cases. They don't really apply in general. If your weight loss has stalled and you're eating at target body weight times 8, then I'd probably recommend that you take a 2-week diet break to eat around your maintenance. And again, I can always help you kind of figure out what your maintenance is. And after that 2-week break, I don't recommend immediately going back to the calorie deficit you were at before, but kind of slowly ramping it down like 100 calories per week. So like if your maintenance is 2,000, eat at 2,000 calories for 2 weeks, and then the next week eat 1,900 calories a day for that week. The next week you can go from there based on what your progress looks like. I did want to mention that I know from experience that once you've kind of been trying to lose weight for a while, sometimes eating at maintenance doesn't always work, and it can kind of turn back into overeating. That just takes time, practice, and self-reflection, meaning, okay, this isn't working. What didn't work? What can I do to prevent that next time? And I know probably some of you may hear me say that a lot, and there's a good reason for that, is because it's always a learning process. I'm still learning myself. I've maintained my weight loss for coming up on 8 years here next month, and I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes. It's a gradual process, and I think I'll always be learning. Even as my situation changes, it means you kind of have to keep adapting to things as they happen. So like I said, if that's something you think you'd like some help with, ramping calories back up for a little bit and then slowly ramping them back down, it is good to take diet breaks every once in a while. You can't just be in a calorie deficit year round. There are consequences to that, and you could be basically trading short-term happiness for worse results, meaning there is evidence to suggest that if you take regularly scheduled breaks and actually keep them at maintenance without overeating, that your progress in the long term may be better. And I think I can pretty much agree with that in my own experience, that's happened with me as well. All right, well, I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to go over. I was hoping to keep it under a half an hour, and I barely made that. So I don't see any questions being asked right now, so I think we're going to call that a night. And as always, if you have any questions between now and the next one, let me know if you'd like your question to be on the next Hangout, or if you'd prefer to have it answered pretty much immediately. All right, well, everyone have a good night, and until we talk again, take care.